Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Thursday book launch. I'm Malika Albrecht. I'm the founding editor of Redheaded Stepchild. We are not open for submissions, but we'll reopen in February. So if you got a poem that's been rejected, send it to us. We like dumpster diving. Super excited tonight to be celebrating. And we've just had like the best conversation. So I will try to back us up so that y'all can hear the prequel and the fascinating conversation that we've been having with Carla Crujido about not only her debut short story collection, The Strange Beautiful, but also about writing in general. And I think I really wanted to come back to that, Carla, because you were talking about, when you're sending work out, how important it is, yes, to, of course, edit and to really hone your craft, but be true to yourself, and your piece will land where it's supposed to
Absolutely.
land. And I wanted to say that sounded not only like, genuine, suggestions and helpful suggestions, but kind of your journey. So I wanted to ask, is that something that you found with The Strange Beautiful? And how did you end up with the press you ended up with?
Absolutely. So I sent it out in different ways. I sent it out without the interludes. I sent it out as just a short story collection. I sent it out as a novel. I tried everything when I was trying to get the agent. And I just got rejection after rejection after rejection. So finally, I thought, well, maybe I'll just try the small press route, which I did, and I still got rejected. But then one came along and said, I'm absolutely in love with this book. Can we have it? And so I said yes. And this was not my original. I mean, this was the original press. This is not the press that published me. It was under the umbrella of Chin Music. And so we worked together for a very long time. And then some things happened, and that ultimately it was not published with that press. And so it was a very stressful time, honestly.
Yeah.
But I want to be honest, because this happens all the time, and I don't think enough people talk about it. So I gathered myself up again, and Chin Music, the owner of Chin Music, Bruce, said, we'll publish it. And so it was supposed to come out sooner. We had our journey, Bruce and I had our journey together. Everything in this post-pandemic publishing world is different. It just is. Yeah. And so there were hiccups. There were roadblocks, however you want to look at that. But then it finally did come out last year today. So
yeah, we're celebrating 1 year.
1 year.
Fabulous. Yes.
And even that, it's small press. It's we still have to do the work. So it's been a lot of ups and downs this year emotionally. I've been very busy, but just today I thought about all the people, really the people that this book has brought into my life. And that's just everything. I mean, I'm so proud of the book, and I love having a book in the world, but just the people that it's brought to me, that's just what it's all about, I think. And I mean, especially just looking back over photos and thinking about where I was a year ago, which I did earlier today.
Yeah, I was going to say today would be the perfect day for reflection of like what it felt like to have that, book arrive, and to unwrap it and to see the physical manifestation of so many years of work.
Absolutely.
And then also now to look back in, a year, that journey, of who you've met, book clubs, where you've read. That's amazing. And not only that, but I mean, you also, as an editor, with River Styx, run across a lot of writers. So, I mean, you already had a pretty broad like group of connections, but it's surprising how a book can resonate and bring that circle, those concentric circles back to you.
Absolutely. And so I had a community when I did my MFA at IAIA. And that is still, that's still a very important group of people to me. But it's just wonderful to see I mean, I have a new community now
Yeah.
of people, or I should just say a broader community of people. Yeah.
Well, and I do want to come back to just doing a brief bio, just so that I can further introduce you to people, but also I want to come back to the MFA and talk about maybe some of that experience because I'm thinking about with our group, we haven't really talked about MFAs or people's experience with, with MFAs, and it's a good topic. So just to back up a little bit, she was, Carla was saying, her MFA is from the Institute of American Indian Arts. And I think I already have mentioned that she is the fiction editor at River Styx, which I have always loved River Styx. I'm a contributing editor at River Styx magazine. And also her work has been published in a lot of different places, including Moss, Bellingham Review, Crazyhorse, another fabulous one, Yellow Medicine Review, and Ricepaper magazine. If we didn't already say it, but now that we're taping, she lives in the Pacific Northwest, and that's why we were talking about this lovely time of year where often Carla was saying it's foggy. And a beautiful area. I just had a godchild visit Portland, and he said, "I can't believe you've never been here. You would love it," but I have not.
You'll have to
So
come visit,
I
for sure.
know I keep saying
Yes.
that. Graf and they've lived there for a while, and I keep saying I'm coming. So I'm going to turn it over now to you, Carla. I'm going to spotlight you, and we are looking forward to hearing you read. Just a reminder, the chat section I'll keep track of. Thank you so much for being willing to do this on this.
Oh, thank you for
Thrilled.
inviting me. And for all of you for being here to celebrate with me. So I'm going to start with the prelude, just to give you a little bit more context instead of just reading a story, since they are all interconnected. And I'm sorry, I drank cold water just before we started talking, so I shouldn't have done that. The apartment building. Welcome to Mount Vernon Apartments. Beyond these doors lay over a century of stories, stories that have soaked into my walls, saturated my floorboards, been tucked into closets and corners and cupboards, set atop radiators and windowsills, stories overlooked, stories forgotten. Everyday stories of everyday people who have lived under my roof, my watchful eye. But as we all know, the everyday often holds hands with the magical and the extraordinary. Some insist I am enchanted. Others claim a portal to the past. A few say I draw those to me who need a place for their magic to dwell. I say yes to all. Don't believe me? Choose an apartment. I have 10. Suspend your disbelief. Listen to the story it has to tell. And so for today, I am always intimidated when I read with or for a group of poets. So I really wasn't sure what I wanted to choose, but I've decided to read Apartment B's story. It's called The Tower, and it's set in 1918. Because it is 1918, because there is a flu called Spanish, because you are delicate, your lover keeps you locked in your third-story apartment to keep you safe. A damsel in a tower, he says, as he runs his fingers over your unbrushed hair. He brings news of Spokane to you, but only tells you things that won't make you think worrisome thoughts. He bakes you complicated cakes and pretty pinafores. He dotes, cajoles, worships, smothers. At the beginning of the epidemic, you rouge your lips, braid your hair, dress in Chinese silk pajamas, jade for day, ivory for evening. It feels like a novelty. Soon you switch to cotton union suits, the color of dirty bathwater. Let your white blonde roots go dark. Stop braiding your hair. Stop wearing color on your lips. Stop looking in the mirror. The days into each other, each exactly the same as the one before. Drink coffee, eat toast, wash dishes, take a bath, brush your teeth, your hair, read, eat chocolate, nap, listen to records on the gramophone, eat a quarter of your lover's steak, a sliver of cake, drink half a glass of basement-pressed red wine, wash dishes, sleep, make love every other day, and always on Sunday. You weren't always this dull, didn't always feel this morose, this useless, this lethargic, but being inside all day, every day, has taken its toll. You stare at the same four walls for hours on end. If you walk into another room, you see four new walls. Excuse me. The sameness of each day steals you from yourself. You used to be wildly irreverent, daring, unconventional, a mad flirt. In the life you lived before the epidemic, you were a photographer in Seattle. You worked for Eshel Curtis in his studio in the basement of the Stewart Building, made lantern slides of the city, its buildings, streets, people. You went to art lectures and political rallies, slept with painters, poets, and labor organizers, drank too much gin. You came to Spokane to photograph the city. Mr. Curtis booked you a room at the Davenport Hotel. Elegant, you telegraphed. After dinner, you wandered the hotel's halls, walked its staircases. You took photos of songbirds in cages, women manning the elevators, gilded mirrors holding sentry at the end of hallways, beautiful people crowding beautiful rooms. You peeked into a party at in the Marie Antoinette room and saw that dessert was being served. The sugar embraced you, the butter invited you to stay. You smoothed your dress, straightened your spine, lifted the tipped end of your Scandinavian nose a little higher in the air. You found an empty seat and excused yourself to the table for being late. A lie, but you will do anything for sugar. A waiter placed a slice of cake in front of you, a staircase of marzipan, cake, custard, cream, and jam. It was pink, green, white, royal. You ate it quickly, asked the waiter for another slice for everyone at the table. The women nodded, the men laughed. Please, they all said. The baker was called. If a man ever makes me feel the way your cake does, you said, I'm marrying him. He smiled and thanked you, then returned to the kitchen, leaving you and the table of sugar-drunk revelers to return to your merrymaking. The next night, there was a wedding in the Hall of Doges. You spied the baker and waved. He motioned for you to wait. He disappeared and then returned with a slice of cake and a glass of champagne. He put his finger to his lips when you asked where the champagne, now forbidden, came from. Then asked, dinner? Tomorrow? You looked at the cake, the perfect waves of pearlescent frosting, the champagne, its gold-white bubbles rising to the surface of your glass. He was not someone you could see yourself seducing, but what he did with sugar, butter, and vanilla turned you on. In his hands, they became holy. Okay, you said. Meet me in the lobby at 7, said the baker. You lifted the cake from the plate and took a bite. Your knees buckled with the pleasure of it. Tomorrow, you said, as you walked away. It was the beginning of you singular. It was the end of you singular and the beginning of you plural. The flu hits the city hard. Spokane closes on a Tuesday. Schools, theaters, movie houses, churches. Weddings are banned. Funerals, cigar shop poker games are too. On Wednesday, the first death is reported. The news of 200 deaths follows on Thursday. Halloween is canceled. Spitting is illegal. Wearing masks is law. Besides your lover, the only person you see now is the apartment's caretaker, Thomas, his war-damaged face a beautiful ruin. You wave to him from your window, mouth a silent hello. Besides your lover, the only person you talk to now isn't a person at all. It's a crow who sits on the neighbor's roof directly across from your bedroom window. You talk, it answers, it talks, you listen. Your lover says Spokane is empty, haunted. I want to see it, you say. Photograph it. It's not safe, he warns. I'm lonely, you say. I miss my life. How can you be lonely, he asks. You have me. Your life is with me now. You nod and bite the inside of your lip. Do not tell him the only thing keeping you in Spokane is the epidemic. Do not tell him that a life devoid of laughter is lonelier than being alone. Do not tell him that treating you like a caged songbird isn't love. Do not tell him he does not feel like home. You go out to the garage, pull down a box from your long ago life, a life your lover wants you to erase, to forget. Inside, you find a goodbye gift from an unrequited crush, a man you could not conquer. It is an art magazine from Berlin, an issue dedicated to Marc Chagall. I saw his work in Paris, he told you. It reminded me of you, radical, otherworldly, fanciful. Women flying away from men, men flying away from women. He moved his hands through the air to illustrate his point, untethered by the prosaic and the pedestrian, just like you. In your memory, he is young, while you are growing older. You understand that time is unfair, unjust. You tear the image of a woman floating away from a man from the magazine, take it upstairs, and tape it to your vanity mirror. Every time you look at it, you wonder what happened to the you he saw. One Friday morning, after your lover leaves for work, you triangle a scarf and tie it over your face. Your reflection is a Wild West bandit, a bank robber. You walk to the streetcar and take it downtown. No one is allowed to stand or hold the strap or lean into one another. Everyone must face forward. Everyone must wear a mask. You get off the streetcar at First and Lincoln. A strange stillness shrouds the city. The streets are close to empty, and you think of Pioneer Square after midnight, the place and hour you miss the most. You point your camera first at the twin stacks of the steam plant, and then at the Lion Hotel, now a temporary hospital to house the indigent, the flu's worst cases. Here, death is visible. It dances in the windows and on the roof. You see a nurse standing near the hotel's front entrance. Purple bruises of exhaustion half moon her eyes. May I take your photograph, you ask? She nods. You thank her and smile, then remember your mask. You aren't sure your smile reaches your eyes. You move quickly away from the reality of the plague playing out beyond the hotel's walls, the flu's victims on stretchers draped with white. Your hunger for a downtown escapade now feels reckless, dangerous. You are shaken, ready to go back up the hill. Fear has stripped you of your boredom and bravado. You put your head down and walk as fast as you can toward the streetcar. A hand on your arm stops you. What are you doing here? It's your lover. Have you lost your mind? He asks. His eyes are bulging, a marriage of anger and fear. Why aren't you at work? You ask. He holds up a box from the Crescent department store and answer, a present, you realize, for you. I'm going mad, you say. I had to get out. Don't you understand? He takes you by the shoulders and looks into your eyes. You could die, and then, he says pointedly, I would be alone. The strangeness of his comment flutters, drops, splatters on the sidewalk. The extreme nature of his adoration suddenly makes sense. It sickens you. You are a plaster against loneliness, the chronic aloneness of bachelorhood. He takes you by the arm and pulls you toward the car. Let me go, you say. I'm taking you home, he says. He pushes you into the passenger seat, drives you silently up the hill. You are a child being punished. The next morning, he goes to the hardware store and buys 3 locks, one for the front door, one for the back, one for the window that opens onto the fire escape. What are you doing, you ask, making sure you don't get out again. 1 week knits into 3, 3 into 5. You write long letters to the short list of people you miss the most. You ask your lover to bring you something alive to love. You imagine a cat, black and mystical, or a poodle with clouds of curls. He brings you a jade plant you unimaginatively name Jade. You carry it from room to room and talk to it. Like the crow, the plant becomes a friend, the keeper of your secrets, your dark thoughts. The flu bullies the city. Your lover worries that he will lose his job. He brings home his woes and pours them over you, crushes you under their weight. His worry wakes him at 2, at 4, at 6. He tosses and turns, gets out of bed, and paces the long hallway of your apartment. You wake each time, are exhausted by 7, before your day even begins. You do not love your lover the way you could. You do not love your lover the way you wish you could, but you do not want him to be felled by sorrow. You try to lift his spirits, try to make him laugh. Let's drink whiskey, you say, dance. You pull him toward you by the waistband of his trousers, throw your head back and laugh. Don't be ridiculous, he says. We have nothing to celebrate. We're alive, you say. Isn't that the best reason of all? Enough, he says, and he pushes you away, leaves you standing in the middle of the living room. You have forgotten why you said yes to your lover, agreed to live with him here in a city not your own, far from family and friends. You remember only that after a string of unkind men, his adoration astonished, his attention delighted, normalcy felt like an adventure. He does not make your heart skip beats, does not make you laugh, barely speaks to you. Why, you ask yourself, did you give up your life for this? Why becomes an endless echo. You yearn for deep discussions about the quiet culture of aesthetics. Your lover does not read, does not worship at the altar of art. When you introduce topics that interest and excite you, a look of disdain flashes across his face, is followed by, "What are you talking about?" As an act of personal protest, you utter a single word for 7 straight days, varied only by your intonation. Oh, oh, oh. The only "oh" to garner a reaction is the flat one, to which he replies, "Oh, what?" His question deluged with disgust. You are flummoxed that he doesn't notice the change, then furious. You crave sex, hot and dirty. Your lover is lean, muscled, exceptional for his age, now leaning into 40, but the sex is as dull as his wit. He presses his close lips to yours, presses you into the sheet, into the mattress. You want to melt, drip, be licked. Instead, you are pressed. He is Victorian in a modern era. He is, you realize, a prude. Your loneliness becomes an extra appendage. You strap it down, hide it, pretend you are happy, pretend you love him. As your sadness grows, you start to float. At first, you are an inch off the floor, then 3. Soon you drift from room to room. Your shins hit the kitchen counter, the bathroom sink. You hold onto furniture to moor yourself. Eventually, you spend entire days pinned to the ceiling. Your lover does not lose his job. Instead of working less, he works more. Fearful of the flu, 2/3 of his staff quits. He leaves every morning before 9, is gone for 10 hours, 11, works 6 days a week, sometimes 7. When he comes home at night, he brings dinner from the hotel. Always steak, medium rare, a baked potato, buttered and salted, a slice of cake, chocolate. You eat in silence at the dining room table. The only conversation, the scrape of a knife, the shriek of a fork. The weeks hopscotch from November to December. It's Tuesday. Your lover is working late, making cakes for the holiday season, stacked, filled, frosted, fancy. In spite of the danger, people continue to celebrate, a misguided nod to normalcy. Your lover bakes their cakes. The hotel pretends not to notice their parties. You put a record on the gramophone, Puccini's Love O.M. Take your red silk pajamas out of the drawer from a shop on King Street in Seattle's Chinatown, from your life before you moved in with your lover, before the flu, before you were sugared with sadness. You sit in front of the mirror, braid your hair, crisscross it over the top of your head, pin it into place. The moon strokes you with her long fingers of light. You paint your lips red. It shocks after a string of colorless weeks. You spritz perfume on your throat, your wrists. You study your reflection, wish someone else could see you painted and dressed. You open a bottle of champagne and drink it straight from the bottle. The pop and fizz of the bubbles enliven you. The music's notes knock against the glass. You open the window to a rush of snow-frosted air. The aria invites you to follow its crescendo out the open window. You and the music float out over the city, away from your lover, away from the apartment, away from the sadness, away, away, away.
Hells yeah. If
That
people want to
was
unmute,
poetry.
there you
Oh,
go.
thank you.
Yeah,
I
There
mean,
you go.
thank you, especially from
Yeah,
all of you.
that was poetry. That was poetry for
Thank
That
sure.
was
Oh my
awesome.
goodness.
Yeah, Carla, you're going to see how much that was written in the chat section and where it started. So, like, let's talk about that because I really do, think that the repetition and the way that you use language is, that's the poet's craft. And so
Thank you.
I was not surprised that so many people were going, this is poetry. This
It is
is poetry. It's very powerful.
Thank you so
There
much.
was a phrase that I wanted to go back. Shamal, it might have been you how you described it. Oh gosh, if I can find your quote, because I thought that was very insightful.
Troubling and beautifully done, I think.
There you
Oh,
go.
Oh,
God, how
it-
did you
it-
know that's what
it-
I was talking about? Yes.
Because you were clear.
I just-
and I have to
Probably-
tell you, I can't see the chat. And so I will
Oh,
have to wait
oh.
for the notes. So you're just gonna have to talk to me.
Oh,
and
you're going to be
Uh,
so
You,
happily
you,
surprised.
you may have to click on the chat icon at the bottom for it to pop up.
Yes, it's just
It's just not showing. Oh,
frozen. Here we go. It was frozen. We're okay. Now I can, oh, I can't wait to read this.
Yeah, I think but I love the way that you phrased that. You said it's so beautifully done, but is so troubling. And I think that one of the things I really like about Carla's work is the vividness of the scenes that she sets up, but then also these rich interior lives that we just keep getting pieces of, and how masterfully they're done. It is delightful. And one of the questions that I wanted to ask was, when did you start writing these? And you obviously did research to do it. How did you work that in?
Ironically, I didn't write any of this when I was doing my MFA, which just bumped up against it. So I was working on a novel, pure historical fiction, even though I had mentors that are so incredible at writing fabulous or speculative fiction. Two of them being Marie Helene Bertino and Ramona Acebel. But I wasn't there. So I was writing this historical novel and I graduated and we were 2 months into the pandemic and something just sparked. And so the first story that I wrote was The Suitcase, which just, I'd never written a short story in my life. And I don't really remember where I was in Flagstaff, Arizona, but I don't remember exactly what I was doing, what sparked it. But I sat down and I wrote The Suitcase. And it just, after that, it just kept coming out. And so I was trying to remember the other day, I think I wrote it maybe between May of 2020 and then February of 2021, because then I started editing an anthology, and I don't really remember. You know how COVID times are. We've forgotten.
Yeah, it blends.
Yeah. And so
That's wild though, that spark happened. And I just was curious about, and when did you know that you had created, the collection, or when did you start to?
it was a long time. It's just the actual story of the book. If I were to back it up, it started, which I wasn't even writing, but the thought, it happened, I think now it's been 25 years ago. And ironically, it started when I was watching a movie with my mom, Benny and June, and she lived in Spokane. It's where she met my dad. So in the 60s, she was living in this apartment building up on the South Hill. And we're watching Benny and June, and she just went pale, and it's in the book actually. So the final story, The Mirror, is really my mom's story. And you can email me and ask me at any time which parts here are true and which aren't. I will tell you right now, most of it's true. So as fantastic as it is, most of it's true. So she lived in the apartment where Benny and June was filmed. It took me 24 years, maybe, or 3, to get into that apartment. So it was 2 decades, 2.5 decades of searching for the owners. So the whole thing's been a story. I mean, this
Oh
fantastic
my gosh.
story. And then thank God for the internet, I finally tracked down the owners. I wrote them a letter, and within 5 minutes of them opening it, they said, come up to Spokane. So that was 2017. And I walked into that apartment building and I was like, oh my God. So that's what my novel was going to be about. And then it was just, like I said, I worked on that 250 pages. It was horrible. And it's so hard to let go of your work. I think you all know that. Sometimes you just say, this is awful, and you put it aside, and it's okay to do that. And then I wrote the suitcase. And after that, like I said, I thought this is my form. And I was never a short story reader. I mean, I'm a voracious and a lifelong reader, but I never was really attracted to the short story form. And that, I mean, it felt like the best way to tell the stories, because there was so much history and so many stories around that apartment that I wanted to tell. And that felt like the only way I could do it. So.
Love hearing that backstory. Do other people have questions? I tried to keep track in the chat section. I didn't want to miss anything. Yes.
I'm curious about the choice of POV. It works. It
Okay.
lends that surreal edge but it's an unusual choice. So I'm curious what led to that choice. Was
Absolutely.
it just
So
instinct or?
I tried to use a different point of view for every single story, different tenses, and I like to give credit where credit is due. And so after reading my friend Tommy Orange's, I mean, it's part of there, but it was in the New Yorker, and I think it was called The Union, and it was second person. And I read it, of course, but when I listened to it, it actually made me cry. And there was something about just that second person point of view.
Wait, Tommy Orange is your friend?
We went to IAIA together.
Very
I mean,
cool.
he graduated before me, but once you're in IAIA, you're in IAIA. So we're a family. We're a big family. But it just felt so powerful. And just like the short story form, I never liked second person, ever. And, coming out of the 80s, when so many of those people were really into writing second person, it just felt like it worked. And I've only used it a couple of times. I used it for a story that was recently published. No, I wrote it I used it for a story I wrote for Pine Whiskey, which is a Spokane event. And that story is still unpublished except in the chapbook for Pine Whiskey. And I used it in this. But
So are
if-
most of the ones in this book, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, are most of these in the book first person
I didn't use first person at all.
at all?
So
No,
I
so
used
they're third,
third.
okay.
And
I was just
wrote
curious.
Yeah, I wrote my first person POV story for the Spokesman Review, which if you go to my website, you can find it. And that was the first time that I had written using I. So I kind of let the characters speak to me and the stories speak to me and tell me who they are, and then kind of go from there. And some of those stories were written in first person and they didn't feel powerful enough, so I switched.
Yeah,
So
it's fascinating. Second person usually moves you further away from the character. And
Yeah.
in this one, it creates more intimacy.
thank you.
So that was really
It-
cool.
Yeah, I was gonna echo that because it really felt like eavesdropping in a way as well. And there was, I think that intimacy, which I would have been surprised. It's interesting that so often the things that we say, oh, I'm not, that's not naturally what I'm interested in, bring out sometimes something very different in our interaction with them that makes it like the choice.
I was surprised. I mean, I know it's my own work, but it's still, I was surprised over and over again by where it took me, where I allowed it to take me, because I had very strong opinion. I have very strong opinions, but I had very strong opinions about how I wanted this to be, and that wasn't the case most of the time. So I listened and I just let it take me where I wanted to go.
I think that kind of feels accurate for how the collection reads, though. There's kind of discovery or a sense of adventure, I think, that gets infused because of your experience as a writer, that you were willing to go on the journey. Like you got on a ride that wasn't really advertised and you're not really sure what's going to happen. And I think it's good.
Thank
Even
you.
my thought, you know. I did want to let everybody know I put the link for Carla's website so you can go directly there and learn more about her work.
And I think also the mannequin is there. There's a link to that one too, which was in Moss Journal. So yeah.
Did I miss any other questions or things that people were thinking of as we're talking?
I'm speechless. I don't,
Noticing that you guys
I'm
that are
just
normally
like, that was just, it just transported me.
Yeah,
Gosh.
it
That
made
was,
me want to go write.
Oh,
that
awesome.
I know, I'm sitting here
is
making
awesome.
notes.
And
My
yes,
story collection is going to be blah, 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 which is,
Great.
I
Ugh.
think that that's like the best thing though, is when somebody sparks so hard that you want to
Yeah.
go right, that you feel, and I think that's that synergy that we have as writers. So when somebody does that, that to me is like the height of compliment. I just put the link straight to the
Thank you.
Moss, that mannequin. I think we just take a moment and go, yay. Thank you for letting us celebrate
Yeah.
Thank you.
with you with
And this has
the
been
Strange Beautiful.
Thank you.
I did want to ask, because we did talk about this before we started actually recording. You were talking about so much that the writer has to do, and I think that might be helpful for people understanding some of the things you can do to get the word out there, some of the things that you found helpful, or just thoughts that you have with this years of experience of having this book out in the world.
And I think it's different for everybody, obviously, because some people have the major publisher and that publisher has a PR department and all of it. And so the writer still has to go out and do the work. They still have to go out and do the events. But when you are with a small press, it's up to you. And so Bruce did have somebody in the beginning, and she was wonderful. And so she opened a few doors before she left. But basically it was up to me. And so I booked different events. And I think that's very, very important to get out there. You may not sell a ton of books at the event, but it's just the interaction, like meeting the readers and I did a lot of events in Spokane. So also being in place and being able to talk about place and people just getting excited about that. I love that. But anyway, it falls on us. So we have to also just get out there and don't be afraid, and just try and see what you can land as far as like bookstore events, being on the radio, trying to get into the newspaper, whatever it happens to be. I mean, it's all publicity, and all publicity is good. So
That's how people find out. And, with poetry, it used to be a very regional thing, meaning that we knew poets within our geographical region, or maybe where if we went to and got an MA or MFA, we might have broadened, or if we were going to AWP, you broaden. But during the pandemic, there was suddenly, a very big opportunity that we didn't have before, where I met poets that I wouldn't have run across, because there's no way I would have seen their readings. I don't live there. And that's something that I think has been really amazing and helpful and also overwhelming. I don't think I realized, like, I knew there were a lot of amazing writers out there. I just didn't know how many. And now I just go, I can name 100 writers that I know that are writing today, that I just go, holy smokes, that is awe-inspiring and amazing.
and that is true. I mean, that's thankfully my book came out after lockdown. And so I didn't have to try to navigate having a book in the world and then only being able to use Zoom, which it has its pros and cons. I mean, it brought all of you to me or us together today, which is incredible, because otherwise we wouldn't have been able to connect. But there's something to be said for just being in person with somebody. So, but don't be scared to get out there and just try to be seen.
I think that's perfect. And I also love how, before we were recording, you were talking about like authenticity, staying true to your dream. And I think all of us have had a story or a poem that I know I have, that I've worked on, trying to meet the criteria of critique group or whatever, and I've killed it, and I've had to gratefully sometimes go back to that first draft and to say, what do I still feel a vibration from? What do I still feel interested in? And follow that in a different route. The authenticity, like staying true and keep on keep on showing up, doing the work.
Absolutely. And I think
it is out there.
Things can be over edited. And that's why it's so important to just, I mean, you have to stay in love with what you're working on, because you're going to have flat sections in there, but overall you should be in love or have a crush on at least what you're working on. So
I agree with that. I think that's part of why a lot of us enjoy writing. The very act is to me a very pleasurable, passionate, or movement filled. It is like being on fire. And even if I edit at a quieter time where maybe I don't have that new poem smell, is what I used to call it. It no longer has that new poem smell. I got a little bit of distance with them. I still have to feel passionate, something about the work, whether it's mine or someone else's.
Yes.
When input comes in, the hard part, I guess, of moving work from one level to another is like, what if this critique makes me more me, but just better craft? And what takes me away from myself? Or if you're editing, like you try to make people distill themselves, not turn them into somebody else.
Absolutely. And I said no to I had a brilliant editor, and there were still things that I said no to. And I didn't know in the beginning that I was allowed to say no. And I had a friend who had her book published just before mine. And so I learned a lot from her. And she said, I said no to a lot. So, there were things that I said yes to, and then I went back and I worked on them, polished them up. And the things that I felt very strongly about, I didn't change. So it's also okay to say no.
I love that. And actually it made me think of my friend's fond of saying no is a complete sentence.
Yeah.
Ooh,
I
done.
I
like
like
that.
that.
I do too.
Yes. So
Well,
don't.
I knew I was going to adore you. It has just been so much. I have enjoyed the conversation just as much as the stories and hearing you read. I am just very grateful that John connected us. They tried to sign on. I don't know that you got to see it, Carla. Kathy kept signing on, and they kept getting booted. So I don't know what was happening, but I could see them come on and I'd be like, they're almost here. And then they'd be gone. So something went awry.
Hi, John. Hi, Kathy. Thanks for trying to be here. Let's just put it out there, and then they can
There
watch
you
the
go.
video.
That's
They can watch
awesome.
the recording, right?
Yes, and that's the
Absolutely.
other thing I really like is our recordings get watched, some of them hundreds of times. So I think that's fabulous. I think it's great that we have something that, people could come back to and say, I really would like to hear this writer talk and share their work. So we're moving into open mic, and Carla, you get to relax now
Okay. I
and
love
not
it.
be yeah, we have a fun open mic. Right now I have Christy, Shamala, and Karen, Laura, and Cal, would y'all like to read? Not tonight. Don't worry about it. And Cal, you said yes? Okay. All right. So Christy, I'm coming to you. And if anybody needs me for any reason to pause the recording, let me know. We will abide by whatever works for y'all. Christy.
Okay, so when I was talking to Karen earlier today, she was telling me to hype my book again because I hadn't done it in a while. So this is my chapbook, Finding Her through Finishing Line Press. And when I was looking through the book, I realized there's a poem in it that I have never read out loud before, ever. And so I'm going to read it now. This is called Vanishing Point. She did not return to her first home, but resides womb adjacent, a place where heartbeat echoes life abated and self is a pre-drawn creation. Thank you.
Ah. Yeah, it's so nice that you bravely read a poem that you haven't read yet. And isn't that interesting that that's one that you haven't? I really like it. And I remember that in the collection. I like it when we push beyond what we normally do. So thanks for that, Christy. Shamala, coming to you. Give me 1 minute. There we go.
That was stunning, Christy. Sorry, can bring my head back after that poem. So there's another poetry community that's called Monday Night Poetry Lounge, and it's on Meetup. It's another very friendly group, and we meet basically at dinner time. So a lot of us are, eating very quickly as we come into the room. And there was a very silly conversation one day as we were waiting for people to come in, and I said, I had muted myself because I was negotiating with a sandwich, and I said that line, and people were like, "What do you mean?" So after I wrote this after that. So After Monday night poetry on Meetup, I was negotiating with a sandwich. That's why I'm late. How does one negotiate with a sandwich, you ask? Well, I was rushing, wasn't I? Trying to eat in a hurry, and a sandwich is hard to inhale. This begins to seem like a metaphor to me. How about you, reader? What do you think? I disagree, you say. And then there is talk. More voices. Words like slurp are heard, and, or I may have imagined it, gooey and mayo, also maybe ketchup. The sandwich is getting rather full of itself, maybe also of us laughing together. Who could have thought a simple sandwich could bring so much joy? Perhaps I should unpick the metaphor, or is it too obvious? Too messy? Oops, no silly joke intended. But can you imagine taking it apart? All that maybe mayo and ketchup and who knows what other ingredients, gherkins or ham or tempeh, terribly crumbling, oozing, separating, fragments spilling on our hands, plates, table, floor, and let us not forget attacking face, mouth, chin, cheeks, and clothing, especially if new or white or silk, or even especially wool. So, didn't I say a sandwich is hard to negotiate with? Keep it together, folks. In metaphor or food, what's the difference anyway? All right, are we ready? 1, 2, 3. Hold your breath. All together now. Inhale.
I'm doing something different today. This is awesome. That's, I mean, you got some cheeky,
It's a
you
really
know,
fun group,
poems,
and we were so silly when we left the room.
yeah. I was gonna say, you did a great job with extending the metaphor. That was delightful. Yeah. Okay. Okay, you guys, you just go ahead and show up and do something different. Throw me off my game. That's fine. Kieran, I'm coming to you.
Okay, I am
Gotcha.
unmuted. Oh, this evening has been pure joy. Golly, I really want to write some fiction now.
Good.
Meanwhile, though, there's a poem. This is, and you guys, it's another tarot inspired poem. I'm just on a jag. What can I say? This is for the poets and writers. Breathe. After the Muse's Eight of Swords. Was it only a tarot pull? After an eon of voices rattling words, the rise in your chest conjures space within the cage of your ribs to weep and to sow and to sweep and to hoe and to know the rise of your chest as a conjure of space within you to breathe, into nurture, into grow, into harvest. Word Smith, you have eaten your sustenance. You have expanded into this time to breathe into deep and dive into blind and to come up for light and shine through and through your words.
Yes. The conjure, come on, that I love the tarot poems. That is working for me. And the music itself was incantation. All right. Let's see what y'all are up to now. Cal, I'm coming to you. Remember to unmute.
Yeah, I'm unmuted, aren't I? Oh wait, I've got to turn off that fan that's making the noise. There we go. Okay, this is called Little Beaver Creek, and it starts out with a epigraph that defines something. The term or name for a group of vultures varies, although the generic term is a flock. When they're flying in formation, they are referred to as a kettle. When resting in a tree or on the ground, vultures are called a committee. And the poem Katie and I, when she was 8, would ride our bikes to the dam a couple of miles down our country road. We'd pause over the creek to look out into the wetlands the dam created in the woods upstream. We wore jackets this day in March with a chill in the air and gentle wind. Out in the water of the swamp was a committee of turkey vultures, taking a rest and looking at us as we watched them, all facing downstream in our direction. I happened to raise my arms, my jacket unzipped and hanging from my arms, perhaps looking to the birds like a big bird myself. As if on command, they rose in unison and perched on tree limbs a couple of yards up from the surface, never shifting their gaze from me. I whispered, "Katie, do this." And she did, prompting the full committee again to rise as one, another 6 feet. And again, and each time we raised our arms, they responded in the same way, in perfect avian synchrony, she and I not knowing exactly why. Thank you.
Oh, cow, that was lovely. Yeah, I think all of us got struck, perhaps looking to the birds like a big bird myself. There actually Cal, there was just a meme that went around of some guy doing like jumping up and down and a whole flock of birds doing the same thing. You wonder what we communicate sometimes. Make sure you unmute. Ah, there you go.
There. Yeah, that rings a bell. I think I've seen that meme. And
Yeah. So make sure you check your chat section. I'll give everybody a minute because there were comments on the poems and I don't want y'all to miss them.
okay.
All right, it'll give you a second to glance through. And I will see y'all next week. And Carla, thank you so much. I'll send the link to Kathy and John so they can watch the video when I put it up.
Please do. And just know, all of you, it was a true joy to be with all of you and to celebrate, because otherwise I would have just been probably on my couch reading. I would have been like, woohoo. So
Yeah, we should
thank
have a
you.
moment of virtual Kate. And I think we should clap for the strange beautiful. I mean, she's a year old.
Let's all clap for her then. Me included.
I love your heart. Oh, that's awesome. It was a delight. Just really a lot of fun. It was great to see everybody. I know we had a smaller group than usual. We had competition. Natasha Trethway is in town. So a lot of my poets went there. Yeah. Yeah. It's a nice group. And stellar open mic.
I'm sorry, I totally interrupted you. There's a little lag here. Sorry.
Yeah. I got a lag on, it takes a minute for my mind. I might have missed what you said.
Oh, I was just saying thank you to all of you. I mean, it just really meant a lot to me. So thank you. And I do hope I get to see you again someday. Maybe I'll just pop in.
Yeah. I mean, try to keep an eye and we do this usually weekly. I don't think I'm taking any breaks for a little while. Maybe briefly when I'm moving farm to farm, if that happens.
Oh.
Yeah. All right, everybody. But yeah, y'all mix it up with open mic. I'm gonna be thinking about what y'all did. It's really a lot of fun.
Thanks, Malika. You're the
Thanks,
best
guys.
thing to come out of the pandemic.
Thank you all.
Aw, thank you.
That is true, Laura. That is true. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we
This is
have seen each other
Absolutely.
4 years of some fun shit.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Laura,
Bomb.
next time I want to hear a poem.
I got to get to writing again.
Okay.
I
Next time.
was just hoping you would pull one out, that you read
I
for.
should have
'cause
pulled an old one out. Yes, that's true.
you got time. We're still here. Just
Come on,
gonna
you know
say
you
it.
got it. It's in the room with you. It's in there. It's in
Yeah,
there.
if you guys are okay.
Malika, I bet
Yes.
you've got a poem
Thank
too,
you,
don't you,
Carla.
Malika?
Yes.
Malika.
I can
Yeah.
find something.
You could
Yeah.
probably find something, Malika.
That would be
All
a
right.
super treat. Malika
Yeah.
never shares her
I
poems.
read where is it? Oh, you guys. Dang it.
And I will tell you that this is where my Norwegian comes out, because I know I don't look it, but my mom is Norwegian and she's bossy. So I know I just, I was a little bossy there, but I'd love to hear your work.
We actually really like that,
It's-
Carla.
We like poet
If you were
shaming.
looking for your tribe that likes like straightforward women, we don't call them bossy.
Yeah.
We like them.
Excuse me.
Okay, I can read the one that's coming out in Cackalack.
Do it.
Okay, this is called let me get it up. The Formulae of Bees. It was 3 days before I remembered to tell the bees. Oh, I remembered to open the window to let the dead retrieve you and set your soul free on its journey to the next life. The clocks were stopped at 9:15 to mimic the repose of your body. We covered the mirrors to avoid seeing our own deaths and to keep you from the desire to stay. But the bees, did they sense your departure and wonder? Were they distressed to be told later? And will they swarm and leave along with you? Meanwhile, I sip at the last dregs of my days. They taste of cold coffee. What I want is to be warm, to sit among the bees and try to solve for the calculus of loss. Thank you.
Why don't you just burn it all down, girl? Because that was some fire.
You.
Thank you.
Yes. And
Yeah.
thank you, Carla. See, this is why we love you, because we would have missed that.
Thanks for
we would
pushing
have
me.
missed that. That is
Mm.
a gorgeous poem. Gorgeous poem.
Thank you.
All right, I will read. I think I found one. That I'll read. It's called "Is There Singing at the End of the World?" And it does have a little snippet before it. While you live, shine, have no grief at all. Life exists only for a short while, and time demands its toll. And this is from the Siculus Epitaph, which is the world's oldest known musical composition. Is there singing at the end of the world? They say one spring there will be no blessings, no bees sleeping in the yellow throats of daffodils, no spring peepers heralding rain. Silence. I know there are ways to exit a body that look like standing still. There should not be ways to enter my body without permission. One daughter once asked, should I hide in a locker if there's a shooter at school? My other child legally changed their name, and these words put them at risk. We have had more mass shootings than days this year, 10 seconds to midnight on a doomsday clock, and has been for years. But today is Valentine's Day, which means my sister will be busy as a magistrate dealing with domestic violence. I've written obituaries for several versions of this world. Perhaps it's as my friend said after returning from war, we are always at both ends of the gun. When I listened to the oldest melody in the world, Hurrion Hymn Number 6, written almost 4,000 years ago, I thought, we've been writing the ending for so long now. Oh, sacred geometry of dandelions, you've caught us scratching our matchsticks on the sidewalk again. We want to share some light while we walk each other home, our feet rhythmic as a drum thumps. It's a song if we can dance to it, making the words up as we go. If it's hard to sing with a piece of universe caught in your throat, you can hum. Thanks, guys. I just realized that's an old version. Edited since then, but
Wow.
thanks, guys.
Oh.
Okay, well, you're
Wow.
not the only ones that are inspired. Like, I'm actually feeling like I want to go write. So, yes. Thank you. Thank all of
contagious.
you too.
Yes, I was gonna say you brought it, so we're sharing it back.
Oh.
That's good. Get on
And
fire,
poetry
people.
does it. Like,
Like I love that poem.
Oh my
Thank you.
goodness. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, thanks, guys. That's the new theme of whatever it is that I am wandering in. Pleasure to be in y'all's good company tonight.
Yeah.
And
Thanks
be
again.
well, be safe.
Feel better.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
thank you. all of you.
Thank
Bye.
you.